Hello and welcome to the PC Gamer Podcast. My name is Chris Thurston and today I'm joined by Graham Smith.
Hello.
And Tom Francis.
Hello.
Two people who haven't done a podcast forever.
Yeah.
I know, it's been a long time.
Last was probably with Eskil.
I wasn't even on that one.
When was the last time you did a podcast, Graham?
Oh man, months ago.
In the past, yeah.
Yes, previously. I don't remember. I also don't remember the last time I did one and didn't do the introduction. So now I'm weirded out.
How has your 2013 been so far, Graham?
It's been fine. I got a bookcase and a new office chair yesterday, and I spent time building those and then sitting in those.
sitting in the shelves.
Bookcase,
yeah.
Which
Which was the comfiest shelf?
the one with kind of a leather covering and padding inside it.
You got the one that was a chair.
Yeah,
yeah.
It was a chair shelf.
Wow,
Chairs with
like
shelves.
a window seat kind of thing.
How's your 2013 been?
It's sort of quiet, like a cold start so far to the year. I think we're gearing up. It's been fun in the office because I feel like I've been basically Tom and I yesterday, pretty much the only people there, kind of randomly tooling about, trying to. I mean, I was over in video for a bit as well. Because sometimes I shift desks to work on video stuff, and no one was there. I had to keep standing up in the middle of the day to wave to get the lights to come back on.
It's always a slow start to the games industry. No one really comes back from the holiday until the Monday after.
Wake me when it's E3.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Tom, how's the start of your year?
It's been good. Last night I slept for about 12 hours and had a dream which I just told you about, but I can tell you about it again now.
Yeah, do tell me.
In which I got a job at Valve Software.
How all your dreams begin.
Yeah, most of them start this way. But actually I was like a little bit conflicted. I was like, do I actually want to work for Valve Software? Because like I just agreed to it and I didn't know why. I was in the backstory for the stream that had just already happened. And I was like, why did I say yes to this? I'm not even sure if I want to do that anymore. But then on the way to Seattle, I got trapped in Nazi Germany. But it was like, I don't know, like geographically that made sense in my dream. It was on the way.
Okay.
And I don't know if my plane crashed or something, but there was like, I was trying to avoid like guards for a while, and then I got arrested, and then Hitler himself was hunting me down in an office block, and I was trying to hide from Hitler in the bathrooms, and couldn't find like a good place to entirely avoid him, and I kept like having to walk past him in the office and like hide my face a little bit, like Hitman style instinct. I'll just eat this donut, avoiding it.
Oh, maybe this mechanic's noticed you, but as I thought, it works.
Well, but then there was a twist
Sorry.
because then eventually Hitler caught me and we tried to shoot each other, but both found that we hadn't put any bullets in our guns, which was a classic mistake that both I and Hitler have made in our life. And then
you didn't make that mistake
like
again.
when we're having our awkward moment of, I guess we can't kill each other. I said, so like, how long have you known I'm here? Did you actually see me those previous times? He said, yeah, I knew you were here all the time. Damn it, instinct doesn't work. And then... Yeah, I
But
was
Hitler
arrested.
was just lying when he said that. He just totally
No, because he like described the bits, the moments when he saw me before. So
Why didn't he do
Hitler
it
had to have
then?
been telling the truth of my dream. He wouldn't lie. He's Hitler. And then I got arrested and I was condemned to live in the slums, which turned out to be really nice. That was where my dream ended.
Hitler condemned you to live in the slums.
Yeah, of the like. I don't know, it was sort of like, he called it the Gulag, which is weird because that's a prison and it's not in Germany. But it was literally just like a sort of district where loads of like starving people lived. But then when I got there, it was like really plush and had a wine bar and like, everyone there seemed really nice and there's like a piano playing. I thought, this seems all right. This is going to be okay. And then I woke up.
Well,
So
happy ending.
indeed. And all in all, so how did this make you feel about accepting a job offer from Valve?
I'm still not sure. Also, they haven't offered.
Love that you crashed in Nazi Germany. It's like that moment in World War II where you're flying from the west coast of England to America and you're like, I hope the pilot doesn't fly east for some reason. That would be really bad. We might get shot down. And then when it happens, you're like, oh no!
Does that happen all the time in World War II?
Why, pilot? Why did you decide to fly around
Go
the
fly
entire
Hong Kong.
planet?
Yeah.
That was the one way you shouldn't have gone.
Yeah, indeed. It's the one place you shouldn't have taken that trip to Seattle. Anyway, Graham, what have you been playing?
I have been
in real
playing,
life as opposed to in your dreams.
I've been playing Kerbal Space Program. In fact, I haven't been on this podcast for ages, so I have all of the games.
What have you played?
Kerbal Space Program, which is an indie game where you are building a space program. I like games that just explain their concept and the name of the game.
Does it take place in a place called Kerbal?
Yes, on a planet called Kerbal, and the population are called Kerbals.
Wow, that really is all in the title.
And basically, you build rockets using kind of Lego pieces to put them together. You know, you put your solid fuel boosters on the bottom. You tie them onto your landing part. You put satellites and computer pieces and pipes, and you wire it all up and stuff like that. And then you take it to the launch pad and you try and launch it into space. And if you're me, or in fact, if you're anyone trying rocket physics, then you crash and explode an awful lot. But then it's an indie game, and it's only in version 0.18, but it's been out and in development for about 18 months now. And so there's a whole solar system now. They've basically finished the sandbox, where there are dozens of different parts you can piece together, and a whole solar system you can then try and explore, you know, put space station parts into orbit or go land on a moon and try and come back and that kind of thing, which is really great. But it's this weird mixture of making you feel really smart while at the same time being quite simple and very, you know, silly, because you explode an awful lot, and you got your little faces like camera views when you're launching a rocket. You got a camera view of the three men on your rocket in the bottom right hand corner. You can see their facial expressions as they're going through the G-forces and stuff like that, and as they get scared when they realize they're about to die. And there's a guy, Jebediah Kerbal, because also their second name are all Kerbal.
Surname's Kerbal. They're the Kerbal species. In
Hello,
the
I'm Tom
planet.
Earth.
Yeah. And Jebediah Kerbal, who never gets scared, and so just always has a big beaming smile on his face at all times. He's always like manically excited and happy, no matter what's happening.
But can't you kill him?
Yes.
Okay.
But that's okay. They don't mind. I think maybe they just respawn or come back when you... But I'm not sure about that. But it's... like it completely hooked me in... And there's no missions to it or anything. I was just setting my own objectives. But it started off as like, okay, when I last played this game, it was like version 0.3. There wasn't even orbit. You could just get up high and then you would fall back down to Earth no matter what happened. So first getting things into orbit, and I accidentally overshot the orbit of the Earth and ended up orbiting the sun. I've just got three guys in a capsule going around the sun forever and ever with really... I could try and get them home, but it's not worth it. So they're gone now. And then getting stuff up into orbit of the Earth, and then landing on a nearby moon for the first time, and then deciding that I would try and build a space station. Now, it's accurately... The physics model is quite accurate, which is one of the reasons why it makes you feel smart, even though it's really simple. Is that's the kind of stuff that it models quite well. And so if you want to put a space station up into orbit, you can't launch it as a single module. You have to launch it as separate bits and then dock them in space together, like they actually built the International Space Station. And that's incredibly difficult, it turns out. Turns out that getting two moving bodies moving on different orbits at different speeds to meet up is incredibly hard. And it gives you a whole... Like, I've watched documentaries about space travel, and I've read books, and I've watched films and stuff like that, and you get a much different sense of it, not just by playing this game, essentially. Like, even if you already understand how complicated it is, actually trying to do little bits of it yourself and failing tens of thousands of times. Because most of those documentaries are about success, about the times that we did it and we did it well. And 99% of the time you're just going to explode. And the way the docking works, like, is you get a map view where essentially, rather like it used to be that you had to actually use a protractor and do all the maths yourself, but they've added this nice system where you can plan a maneuver on your orbit ahead of time. Set what your target is, say where you want the maneuver to be, tweak the settings of it so that your orbits align, and then it will tell you based on that how long you have to burn your engines for, at what speed and in what direction, and then you perform that burn to try and match up your orbits and stuff like that. And if you've watched Apollo 13, then doing a burn, like a timed burn of like, oh, I've got this much fuel, I can only burn my engine for this long, I have to burn in this direction for like, this is exactly what Tom Hanks does.
In real life?
In documentary Apollo 13.
Yeah. And that stuff's just great.
Awesome. Do you find that once you've kind of put principles in place that work for you, you then sort of stick with them and extrapolate them out as you go and do more adventurous things? So are you still using the same technique to get something to orbit now as you were?
You have to build new rockets as a thing. So like if you're based on what payload you're trying to put into space, Chris.
Okay. Yeah,
Payload. And what payload you're trying to put up there, you build a different rocket and that changes your kind of flight plan, I suppose. For because the way you build the rocket is you build it in stages, and then you're triggering those different stages to cause parts of your rocket to fall away down back to Earth, and trigger the next set of rockets to take you up.
Yeah.
And so that process changes obviously as you put more rockets on there to lift heavier things, but then that also changes when you change your angle of descent and of ascent and stuff like that. And I didn't have internet over Christmas because I've just moved house, and so I was watching lots of terrible television. And there was a program called Destroyed in Seconds, which is just about things that have exploded or crashed or blown up.
I guess we're the endings.
And this was about like early rocket tests, unmanned, so no one gets hurt, but early rocket tests where things that NASA did or the Russians did early in their space thing were stupid things that I did and kind of felt like a fool for, or at least looked visually like the same things. Obviously their mistakes were much more complicated than mine, but stuff like you build the thing and then you put it on the launch pad and it's kind of held by these docking mechanisms, and then you throttle up and then you start the first stage, and that causes the dock thing to disconnect and your engines to start. And I triggered that stage once without powering up my engines, and so my rocket just kind of fell 6 feet to the launch pad and exploded. And that actually happened. NASA actually did that.
Come on, think it through.
Spent hundreds of millions building this rocket, and then didn't get enough lift off, and so it just kind of goes and then falls 6 meters and explodes on the launch pad. And, and also you have like navigation systems and like little computer terminals and stuff like that you can stick to the outsides of your rocket to help you control your takeoff, and that can fail or that can break, or you can forget to put it on there and you can lose control and spin out. And that also happened to NASA, and they had to trigger a kind of what's
self-destruct.
Self-destruct, yes, like every version of the Enterprise.
Indeed, yeah. They ejected the disk.
Yeah.
Blew up the nacelles. Wow, awesome. So you say that it's on like version 0.18 now?
0.18, and it costs $23.
Okay, so it is still like a paid for alpha.
Yeah,
okay.
there is a 0.13 is free. So and that's their demo essentially.
Okay.
So it's a paid for alpha. It's still in development. They're starting work now on what I guess is going to be like a campaign mode or some sort of storyline missions thing. But if you want to play it being NASA, then this is really an incredible experience.
Is it like sort of Minecraft then the price will go up when it gets closer to release?
Yes, the price is going up as it comes along.
It's already $22.
Yeah, it's quite a lot. But then I played it for 6 hours a night for 2 weeks straight. So I feel like I got my money's worth.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's cute enough and simple enough that I think it would be great for kids as well. So I was saying to Alex Wiltshire, who's editor of Edge, that he should play it with his son Jack, and I think they're going to do that.
That sounds awesome. Space, yeah.
Lego rocket physics. Lego rocket physics is my one word.
Awesome.
3 word.
It's kind of amazing that like more Lego games haven't been based on that principle than the principle that's actually Lego games, which is platforming. Or Batman.
Yeah.
People actually do with Lego, but with the added benefit of not having to give your kids rockets or whatever. Yeah. Tom, what have you been playing on the computer?
I've been playing Hotline Miami, but also the Double Fine Amnesia Fortnight prototypes.
Yeah.
Which of those should I talk about?
Well, we've talked about Hotline Miami before, I think. So,
yeah.
Double Fine, Amnesia Fortnight.
Okay, so this was a bunch of prototypes made by Double Fine in 2 weeks, during which they split off into teams and try and they all have, like each team has a different idea to work on, and they try and make as much of them as they can in 2 weeks' time, and then decide which of those will become a full game at the end of it. And this year they did it. This time, I'm not sure how often they do it. They had everyone who wanted to lead a team pitch their thing to the internet, and then the internet voted on which ones they wanted to see. And they made the 4 or 5 that got the most votes. And I've played all but one. The one I haven't played is the White Birch, which was a 3D platformer set inside a giant tree.
Was it a white birch?
Yeah,
Okay.
it may have been a white birch tree.
Right there and there.
And I watched a bit of the documentaries of making it and stuff, and the only reason I haven't played it is it just doesn't appear to be the kind of game that I would normally enjoy. Like, I'm not all that into platforming in general.
I was really surprised that did so well in the voting.
Yeah, a lot of the... actually, the voting itself was really interesting, because there was... the ones that got voted for were Automaton, which is a game where you build robots and program them to fight for you. Space, which is building a base in space.
Again.
And managing the people and kind of making sure they're all happy and stuff. Hack and Slash, which is a top-down RPG where you can supposedly hack the game and, you know, change how the code of the game is working in order to... That's sort of their equivalent of Magic. And all three of those are very kind of high concept and sort of here's how this game will work. Does that excite you? And people found those exciting. And then the other two, I hope it's just two, were the Black Lake and the White Birch, which have both similar names. And also both of them, their pitch videos didn't really tell you what you'd be doing in the game or exactly how it would work or what would be kind of the, you know, the central interaction. It was just kind of, here's this really evocative, interesting idea for a place that has these weird animals in it, all this like strange, mysterious stuff. And yeah, people seem to really like that. And the Black Lake is probably my favourite of the ones I've played. It's all of them actually are really good looking. Like the difference between these and other prototypes is I wouldn't say in general that these prototypes are like better than the stuff you see, like the best of the Ludum Dare stuff that people have done in 2 days. But the big difference is they all look really nice, and they'll have like they're done to a much higher standard of presentation than usually a prototype would be, which works well for something like the Black Lake because it's mechanically quite strange, and not the mechanics of it aren't really why I like it. It's much more to do with kind of the atmosphere of the place, and I think if you made it as a like completely rudimentary prototype without any of the proper textures and lighting in it, it probably wouldn't prove that the game's worth making. But you're a little girl in a forest. It has a Russian voiceover intro. Just because they wanted it to feel like a foreign film. So they got the programmer for Space, Anna Kitness is Russian, so they got her to do the intro. And you're hunting, like, I don't know, you see a fox in the intro or something, it runs off and you're just trying to find the fox, and there's no, as far as I absorbed, there was no particular reason to chase this fox. Maybe there was a really important reason and I just wasn't reading the subtitles. But yeah, you're just trying to track down this fox, and then as you do... the forest looked really, really nice, and you can follow the fox's tracks sometimes, but then when you can't see its tracks, if you turn your lantern off, the whole world goes completely dark. Well, not completely dark, but like, you know, dramatically darker. And you can kind of see smells, so you can see little traces of its scent and follow it that way. And then also as you're walking around, there are like corrupted foxes, because this forest has been taken over by some weird stuff. And the corrupted foxes are amazing. They're just like normal fox, but with massive black vine limbs that are like 5 meters tall. So they've got 4 limbs and they're stalking around like, 5 meters off the ground. And they are hostile to you. And if you got your lantern on, they can see you from quite a long way away and will come after you. But if you turn your lantern off, then they can't. So you have these kind of tense moments of you hear one coming and quickly switch your lantern off, and then you're crawling through the dark trying to make out the shape of its giant black limbs. And
Slender fox.
Yeah, basically. And also you can play like little tunes, but I'm not sure what that's about. There's like a little, set of buttons that all play different notes, and there's particular tunes you can play, but I'm not really sure what effect they have. I think you can I did once subdue a fox, but only like temporarily, so it seemed less wise than just running away. Because, like, hang on, Fox, I'm just going to play this. If I can just get these 3 notes right, then you'll pause for a while, and then I can run away, which I could have done anyway. But it's really atmospheric and really cool. And the other good one, the other one I enjoyed most was Automaton, which, again, looks amazing. It looks ridiculously good. And you're in this like junkyard, and there's just bits of robots lying around. So you just find like a torso or a massive gun arm or a pair of legs or caterpillar tracks or hover drive or something. And you pick up any torso and place it somewhere, and that starts robot construction. And the torso will just hover there, and then you choose the other limbs you're going to bolt onto it. And then when it's done, you do 2 things to kind of program it. One of them I just couldn't understand at all, and so I never really got into the kind of the AI bit of it, because the interface for doing it was just baffling to me. But you can do things like, say, when you see a robot, either run away, attack it, or something else. Do nothing, maybe. When you are damaged, attack, run away, or hide, or whatever. And then the idea is, like, some of them you'll make like mining robots, and they can mine energy for you, and that's the resource that it costs to build robots.
Cool.
And so you might tell the mining robot to only run away if he gets hit, whereas an attacking robot, you tell it to attack. But as far as I played, like, it's incredibly generous. You just have loads of energy for everything, and there's the only barriers to where you can go are these big energy walls, and you can walk up to those and just press attack on them, and not only to destroy the wall, but also gives you loads of energy because you absorb all the energy from it. And then every bot you build, although it costs energy, when it's destroyed, you get all of the energy back. And then when you destroy other bots, you get all the energy from them. So I just had like 5,000 energy all the time. But yeah, just finding limbs for robots and then watching them walk around is really fun. Like, I had almost no luck getting them to intentionally attack anyone. I would just build them, and then they'd wander around, and they'd like, because I didn't understand the AI bit, I couldn't get them to, intentionally seek out enemy robots. But then I'd build one with like 2 swinging hammer arms, and he just ran into a wall, and I left him alone and built some more robots. And then I just heard this ruckus behind me and looked around, and he was just smashing the hell out of this other robot. This huge explosion as the thing died.
Awesome.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the brilliant companion programming in Dragon Age.
Oh yeah, that was
where
really complex.
the really conditional. You can set up these really interesting conditionals and things, like, to kind of dictate how your party moves around, which I don't think very many people did, but I did. Because the cool thing about that was being able to program them not just so that they behave in a way that's mechanically useful to you as a player, but you can start to kind of like try and express the characters of those characters through the way they fight and combat, which is like,
I would never use a health potion on this occasion.
well, or like, for example, this person would always help that person. So you can say that if the target of this other character is below 25% health, start attacking them, or if this character is below 25% health, attack who's attacking them. So you have people protecting each other and stuff, and then I basically did that so that you could then play Dragon Age Origins as a single character RPG, but with everyone else behaving intelligently. So it's how you fix the party AI.
If I spend long enough on this AI, it's not fast to control those idiots.
Step 1, reprogram the party AI too.
I think I just had everybody look at my health, and if I'm hurt, then please heal me or help me or something.
Yeah.
Have Double Fine, i.e. Tim Schafer or anyone higher up at the company, given any kind of feedback on the games?
Not that I've seen.
made?
So there was a 10-part documentary on how they're made, and that was really interesting. But then they released them, and but it's all been quite quiet. Like, I never got any emails about it, even though I bought the bundle. It's a Humble Bundle thing, and the Humble Bundle usually email you when things are changed, but I never got any emails about it. And then the same when the documentary was going up, it went up in 10 parts. I didn't even know it was happening at all. I was like waiting, saying, where's my documentary? And it turns out if you go to the link that you got when you first bought it, it's all on that page. And so are the prototypes. And again, they just went up there kind of silently. I don't know if Double Fine even tweeted about it, because I follow him on Twitter, but all the stuff just passed me by until I actually went looking for it. And yeah, again, I haven't seen any reaction from them as to which ones they thought were most successful and which ones they might pursue. I was also kind of wondering if they're going to do some kind of voting thing again, now that people can play them, why not ask people whether they like them or not? But yeah, I haven't seen anything from that. But yeah, I'd like to see Automaton definitely continued, because that feels like I don't really know where the Black Lake is going. What they've got there is really good, but whether it would continue to be good, I have no idea. Whereas Automaton, you feel like there's so much stuff there that's stuff that's already good, and then there's stuff there that could be really good but isn't in yet, or there's no reason to do this, or there's no kind of it's too difficult to make things do exactly what you want, but that's just fixable.
Do you think that Amnesia Fortnight is a good idea for Double Fine?
Yes. That sounds like a loaded question. Do you not?
Well, no, I think it is a good idea because I imagine it's great for morale and they get a bunch of great ideas and stuff like that. But I just wonder if, like, they open this to public voting and the public said, oh, we really like these 5 or 6 ideas. If they then don't make those ideas, do the people who suggested those ideas and worked on those ideas not just feel a bit sad? Like,
yeah,
but
that would be another reason to put it to public vote for the ones that did get, the prototypes that did get made. If you left it to public vote as to which ones carried on, you'd have sort of absolve yourself of responsibility a bit. And like if you worked on a prototype and the public didn't like it, then you'd think, okay, fair enough, that maybe that idea just wasn't working as well as I thought it was. Whereas if, like you release it and you get loads, like all of them will have good feedback from the public anyway, and some bad feedback. And then Tim Schafer says, no, you're not going to work on that because I like this other one. And there's a fan base out there, they enjoyed it.
Yeah.
That'd be really frustrating.
Yeah. I just wonder if people now just quit Double Fine and go, well, I'm going to go make a game. Maybe you own the name The White Birch, but I'm going to make The Grey Birch.
There's a really sad bit in the documentary where, as they're forming these teams, they're like a lady who works in admin at Double Fine who kind of organises things and makes phone calls and stuff. She does art in her spare time, and that's kind of her passion. And one of the teams asked her to do art for their game, so they brought her on as like I don't know if it's a concept artist or whether she's doing actual game assets. But yeah, she absolutely loved it, and they're interviewing about how great it was and how cool, finally she's doing like her job. And then, so yeah, the only downside I guess is that next week I go back to just doing the admin stuff. Yeah. So I think there's definitely
This is why you should never do good things or make your workers happy, because it makes, by comparison, the rest of their lives seem...
very briefly, I should talk about the other 2 that I played. Space is it's a simulation one, so it's all about like the interesting stuff that can emerge from the simulation. And I haven't played it for very long, but as far as I did play, I couldn't kind of see what could happen with the simulation. I couldn't get a sense of like what the interesting things were that could come from this. I gave my guys jobs and built all the different bits of the station you're supposed to have, like a med bay and a bar and the quarters and stuff. And then you assign people to, like, you're a bartender, you're a doctor, you're a thingy. And they went off and did those jobs, and then I just sort of sat there looking at it for a while. I'm like, okay, I'm not really sure what else I should do here. So I never really found out what the core of that was. And then Hack and Slash, which I really liked the idea of and I was really excited about. It's like a sort of Zelda style top-down RPG, and you get like I think it's a laptop, like a genie gives you a laptop and says, oh, you can run these scripts to hack the world. And the first one you get just slows down time, which is a bit disappointing really for hacking the world, because that's an ability we have in every goddamn game. And that's the only one I got as far as I played, because right after that you have to, I'm not even sure what my objective was. I was supposed to find something, and you get into this library and it has like 20 floors, and every floor is almost identical but very slightly different, and you can read all of the books, but none of them that I read did anything. They were just sort of a bit of garbled text. So I ran around that for like 10 minutes and just couldn't find anywhere else to go. So the sum total of that game was slow-mo for me, which means that, again, I don't really know what was cool about it.
I was going to ask, does it compare at all to something like Quadrilateral Cowboy?
I would love it if it did. Yeah. That would be fucking awesome.
Quadrilateral Cowboy being the Brendan Chung sort of hacking game where you hack an environment using an in-game laptop, but that's based very much on a kind of bespoke scripting language that he's written that is consistent, so you can invent things. I'm
really excited about the game. I only played the very early prototype, and I got to a point where I couldn't progress because either it was bugged or I fundamentally did not understand what the scripts were doing. Because I do some programming, so I kind of know, I understand the concept of like the individual statements and what they're doing. And so what you do, you like put down your laptop and you'll connect it to try and get through like a grate, and you'll type something like grate0.open and run that, and then it'll just open and you get through it, and no problem. But then later on there are ones that will set off an alarm if they're left open too long, because they're not supposed to be open. So you have to set up a script that says open, grate open, wait 0.8 seconds, grate close. And then if there's also laser grids and also cameras and things, you've got to make sure they all turn off in the right sequence so that once that script runs, you'll be able to get through it. So you're almost designing the challenge of the level, but within certain constraints. And the bit I got stuck on was like I had to disable a bunch of different things in sequence, and when I ran it, it just didn't do what I told it to do in any way. It was like the thing that was supposed to wait 8 seconds would only wait 0.1 seconds, so I always got caught by it. But I think I'm just misunderstanding something. But the thing I really like about it is it just feels really cool to do programming in a first-person shooter, because it's not shooter, but it is first-person, and it's it's not kind of abstract in any way. There is this whole building there, and you're physically climbing up it and crawling through vents and stuff. And then it feels really cool to just get out a laptop and just do some typing, and then make that make the level work for you.
Well, for me, it was the kind of the combination between the very, very digital thing of programming and then actually having to back it up with action. The temptation when you're programming a script is to make every kind of everything as neat as possible, so that things are only open just as much as you need to. But the more efficient your code is, the better you need to be at the actual running and jumping and climbing and stuff, because you've given yourself a smaller window of time. And that's a really cool two ideas in computing crashing into each other. Which
Double Fine should definitely make this one.
Game that wasn't in Double Fine, Amnesia Fortnight. Brennan Chung's Quadrilateral Cowboy, but still really excited about it.
Is it like the film Hackers?
I haven't seen Hackers in about 10 years.
Do Johnny Lee Miller and Angelina Jolie fly through the virtual world in order to hack a system?
It's nothing like the hacking bit in Jurassic Park, I can tell you that. Yeah, exactly. With Dennis Nedry. Anyway, yeah. I don't know what I've been playing. It's vaguely interesting. I spent so after in the previous podcast we were talking about what we were going to do over Christmas games wise, and apart from playing loads of Dota, which I've spoken about way too much, my RPG that I thought I would play through over Christmas ended up being Mass Effect 3 again.
Really?
But I played it through with all the DLC. Then, everything to date, Leviathan and Omega, which came out very recently. And it's been interesting playing that one again, because I think, as I mentioned before in the podcast, I've replayed every Mass Effect game apart from 3. Many, many times. I played the first one 6 or 7 times.
Jesus.
And the second one more. And I don't know exactly how many times.
Why?
Because I really like them. But actually because I kind of like... And the thing that's always marked out, I mean, this is a rabbit hole I don't want to go too far into. But I always play them through the same way. Like, I'm not mining out different endings or trying different characters or choosing different things in dialogue.
That experience again, please.
Yes, exactly. It's like rereading a favourite book right at that point, or seeing a film again that you like. But partly, and maybe I'll change a few little things, but it's always been about tweaking variables in this thing that for the greater part of 5 years was this big unknown, like where's this all going? And replaying 3 has been really interesting because now I know where it goes. And it's been the most substantially different from the first time I played it to the second compared to any of the other games. I mean, you always have that tension of like, the first time I went through this, I was worried about what would happen if I made a particular choice, and this time I actually know kind of what the parameters are. But that's, I think, probably to the third game's credit, that the tension is so much higher in the third game for the rest of the decisions you make and the stakes of those decisions, and the way that loads of different complicated variables from previous games factor in to what might happen, like the big kind of climactic clashes between races thing that happens a few times, is part of that. But there's so much tension built up the first time you play it, and you don't know, kind of like you're spinning so many plates, that when you know how it all fits together, a lot of that tension is gone. And so it's a very, very different experience. It's more about just appreciating, this is really well staged, or stuff like that. Or something you said, Tom, in your review, or around the time you were reviewing it, I really agree with, is it's amazing how much of that game is just really well framed. Like, you can almost pause it at any point, and it's beautifully like that. Every scene has been thought about. I mean, which is such a step from the original Mass Effect, where they were just figuring out how to make an RPG in Unreal Engine, and so every conversation is the same sort of shoulder cut of people talking, cut to the other guy's head, cut to the shot that's slightly further away where you can see Shepard's back, and those 3 cuts like constantly, and then they started like mixing things up and having characters talk while moving and stuff. But I wasn't really aware of this until I take screenshots constantly when I play games anyway. But with Mass Effect, I've got a gallery, which is a curated gallery, which is basically the entire Mass Effect story from my Shepard's point of view, as a slideshow, essentially. The most boring slideshow, but but it's useful actually for recapping before you play the other games, just kind of that sense of what the big moments were. And my kind of little, like, the tick in my brain that makes me take a screenshot is, that looks nice, or that looks dramatic, or that's a moment that I want that kind of like will frame well later on. And in Mass Effect 1, I ended up taking maybe between something like 700 and 800 screenshots over the course of all of Mass Effect 1, and then Mass Effect 2 was something like 4,000 screenshots. And then Mass Effect 3, like, even this playthrough I actually haven't quite finished yet. I'm just at the point where it triggers the end game now. Mass Effect 3, it's gotten to like 12,000 screenshots. Like, because every conversation has multiple moments in it where you're like, oh, that looks cool, and the way that this character's kind of blocking out the light in this, and this, everything's really nicely framed, and look at that landscape, and just constantly like, and I don't even take too many screenshots within the actual like actual shooting bits because I don't want the UI or anything else. So it's, you know, it's just like, yep, okay, that's cinematic moment, or I want to remember this bit, or like it's such a. I mean, I know it was. You know,
I have the same impulse, like the same kind of like, oh, that looks pretty. Take a screenshot automatically. And my Deus Ex Human Revolution screenshots are almost 100% kill moves because A, it looks cinematic, and B, you don't have any control for that moment. So it's one of the only moments where like you don't have anything else to do. So I just instantly hit the thing. And of course, there's only about 10 different animations. Yeah. So there's a lot of repetition in my screenshots.
I do that a lot as well. Because I take screenshots generally, but then I'm reviewing Ridge Racer Unbounded, and all my screenshots are of crashes. Because it's the only moment when the camera, spins around and you get to take your finger off the accelerator.
All of my Assassin's Creed 3 screenshots when I reviewed it are the endless amount of like takedown animations and things that are in the game. Because you're like, oh yeah, look at the animation that I'm not doing.
Super Hexagon as well. It's a really hard game to get screenshots of.
All the cinematic kill moves.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, and I loved Mass Effect 3 at the time, and I voted for it when we were figuring out what Game of the Year was going to be. If you're wondering how that works, and and partly, I mean, but partly, I think this is, and it's even definitely hit me more playing it again, how relentless it is in its attention to the way the communities always pay attention to those games. I mean, like, there's an in-joke about almost everything, and it goes really deep. Like, even the bit where you're just scooting the ship around the galaxy map. You can kind of, if you're me and you've read every planet description in Mass Effect and you've been through all of the games, and in the first game they had such a chunk of the galaxy that you could explore and read planet descriptions. Not even every planet you could land on, but you could say that this is a gas giant, this, and this, and one explorer once thought this about it. Little chunk of text, done. And then Mass Effect 2 opened a different section of the galaxy and there was some overlap, but Mass Effect 3 has pretty much all of it, like collectively. Pretty much every planet that's ever been interesting in Mass Effect has something on it in Mass Effect 3 if you scan it that's relevant to the role it played in the story. So if it was just the location of a side mission in Mass Effect 2, if you scan it in Mass Effect 3, there will be some sign of that. And it's this constant like little, like, we can't give you a payoff for everything, right? We can't say that, oh, that time Shepard did a completely optional mission in Mass Effect 2 to stop some nukes from being launched on this moon to this planet, is going to have some massive payoff in Mass Effect 3. But if you go and scan that moon, you do find the nukes. So it's like that kind of thing. It's like, oh, wow, they really, like, there's such a depth of effort just into kind of, if you spent as much of, if you've played it so many times that you have this memory for all of these things, then there's something really satisfying about sort of going, oh, yeah, that planet rings a bell. Is that the one with the, oh, yeah. Like, or, finding the wreckage of something that you did once, or, sort of.
Does Mass Effect 3 start off with Shepard on trial?
Yeah.
Because you could have done the whole game like that. It's just like the final episode of Seinfeld, where they just bring back all the old characters from the first two games. And
Trial could be 8 hours long.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting, like, as well, that like that trial factors in the DLC you may or may not have played from Mass Effect 2, which is released directly into why Shepard is on trial. But if you haven't played it, they're on trial. He or she is on trial for slightly different reasons, like much vaguer reasons than the very specific thing. And it's sort of interesting that gets sort of slipped seamlessly into dialogue at the start. I mean,
that's cool actually, because I played that DLC and I really didn't like it because Shepard does something at the end of it that's really controversial, and you don't get any choice of it. Shepard just does it. And I'd heard that the trial thing on trial for at the start of Mass Effect 3 was that particular thing, and that annoyed me because I thought, like, I wouldn't have done that. And also I think with my main character I didn't play this DLC, and so I'm glad that it isn't specifically that if you didn't play that.
Yeah, I mean, but there's also a really nice, I mean, they do so much to kind of absolve the moments that were controversial in the previous games as well. Like, there's a conversation you can have. If you've played that DLC, then it adds an NPC to the Citadel later on who calls you on it. Like, what the hell were you thinking? I mean, because,
Is it me?
No, well, the thing is, I mean, Shepard really doesn't have a choice in that moment in the story to do the thing that Shepard does. I'm going to spoil, but it's bad for a lot of people, but if you don't, it's the killing X amount of people to save everyone else.
But the logic on which that will save them is a Reaper vision. It's like, if the Reapers are telling you that, it might not be completely trustworthy.
Yeah, true. But I mean, by the time Mass Effect 3 rolls around, you were right. So it's sort of, the vision was correct, so it's kind of factored in. But Shepard actually has a comment about how I didn't have a choice, which is really interesting. Like,
it was really annoying, believe me. I was so frustrated I didn't have a choice about this.
But there's some amazing things in Mass Effect 3. There's a bit where you see a recurring character from the first two games, who's the guy who wants to be Shepard, Conrad Werner.
Oh, yeah.
Who's this guy who in the first game shows up and he's your biggest fan. He's just annoying on the Citadel, but he just wants to be you. And there's a bunch of ways that can end in Mass Effect 1. You can either point a gun at him and tell him to just you're not this person, go away. Or you can be nice and say, like, go home to your wife, dude. Like, just stop this. But in the second game, the save import was bugged. Like, it was just a bug in Mass Effect 2 that meant it didn't import that decision correctly. So he always assumed that you'd pointed a gun at him. So he'd always say, Shepard, last time I saw you, you were an asshole. And then in Mass Effect 3, when you see him, he says, I'm really sorry if I accused you of pointing a gun at me. Because then it goes back and correctly imports the Mass Effect 1 decision. And he goes, I'm really sorry. And so if you did if it made that mistake, it goes, I'm really sorry, I was under a lot of stress. It's like,
that's incredible.
I love that they went to that extent of like patching that hole. Like, and then there's maybe minor spoilers for a very small side mission in Mass Effect 3, but his entire role in Mass Effect 3 is to offer payoff for every dumb thing in Mass Effect 1 all at once in one long running joke. So Mass Effect 1 had all this like random busy work. Like you could scan a planet and find Matriarch's writings or Prothean data disks, and you had to go and buy licenses before you could buy things from the shop on your ship and all this stuff. And part of Mass 3 is building this dark energy device essentially over the course of the game that people are building. And so you meet this guy on the Citadel and he's like, Shepard, maybe, let me come with you this time. Finally, let me come with you and I'll help. And Shepard just sort of exasperatedly says, unless you know a load of things about dark energy, you really, really can't help. And he went, well, actually, I did my PhD in dark energy, but man, this proprietary thing I needs a special license. And then if you bought that license in Mass Effect 1, Shepard brings up his like PDA and goes, oh, there you go. And then he's like, but it's an ancient Asari. If only we had loads of writings. And it's like, with this full collection of Asari Matriarch's writing help? And like, yeah, and it just does this kind of like running gag of every dumb thing in Mass Effect 1 pays off with this one war asset in Mass Effect 3. And then he's done this dumb thing, Comrade has done this dumb thing, and you go and stop him, and he walks off, and then he points out this Cerberus informant, this villain, who then points a gun at him and fires, and Conrad takes the bullet for you. And then if you had previously on the Citadel in Mass Effect 1 helped this bartender get out of this like sting operation that she was running, this tiny side quest, she walks out from nowhere and like another Mass Effect 1 character shows up and says, oh, I hacked his gun before he could fire. And then like this sort of like thing just piles on with more characters showing up just to have their one moment in Mass Effect 3, just like, let's close off all of these different things at once and then move on. It's awesome. I wanted to be in the writing office at BioWare when they just came up with this.
I didn't want to be in the QA office. They were testing this thing.
No, yeah, but it's awesome. But the thing rambling about Mass Effect, but the thing I wanted to go into was the DLC because it's the new stuff. And I think if you think of replaying it, it's really worth replaying it with Leviathan, which is the one they added in August, which was sort of came out after the extended cut and does more to, although it was obviously planned before the game was released to add more to the ending and add more answers and stuff. But the reason it's really interesting is because I think it's actually some of the best executed sci-fi horror I've seen recently. And I didn't expect that from Mass Effect necessarily, although initially I think it's something Mass Effect was good at. In that there's sci-fi games in general tend to be pretty bad at like pulling off sort of proper like cosmic horror well, and it's something I'm interested in generally. But the idea that the thing that's scary in space is scary because it's alien to you, not because it's in and of itself a magic demon thing. Like I don't find that it's not a ghost, you know what I mean? Like it's not something totally irrational. Like, and Leviathan is all about tracking down this sort of essentially mythical thing. If you've played Mass Effect 1 and 2 attentively, there's references to a particular Leviathan that people don't know what it was, and then when the Reapers invade, you start getting a hint of what it might be. But it sort of strings this thing out of like, what exactly is this thing that has killed a Reaper and has kind of vanished and leaves these traces throughout the galaxy, and this sort of like these sightings. And the DLC is based around a hub area, which is a lab on the Citadel of this professor who's died. Like it's the most horror setup ever. You know what I mean? You're literally exploring this person's life and effects, and sort of looking at the things in his office and the things he was researching, and the lines drawn between different parts of and then in his office is a galaxy map. And as you explore and click on things and listen to bits of the story and figure out what his research was taking, it adds filters to the galaxy map. And the more things you add, you pin down locations in the galaxy, and you can pin down less and explore. You can pin it down to a point where it'll let you go off and then do the next part of the mission, but you have to manually scan a bunch of different planets. Or if you want to play smart, you can find more clues and pin it down to exactly where this thing might be. And it does that a few times, and you return to this location. And then each time you go off to a location, it's just like this little self-contained horror mission. So one of them is essentially crazy cultists on a mining asteroid. And all of it kind of seems like this could be Lovecraft stuff, right? You get the cultists bit. I mean, people know how much I love Lovecraft, but like it's got the cultists bit. It's then got the kind of the action bit where, and again, the set pieces are some of the best they've done. Like there's a fight on a cliffside base that's collapsing as you're fighting along it, and like what might be a room 1 minute becomes a platform the next as it kind of gets blown up and falls down and level and stuff. It's really, really cool. And then ends under the ocean, like this kind of, I mean, literally it goes full blown like Old Ones kind of under the sea on this kind of like barren sort of Bermuda Triangle style world where ships just crash for no reason, and the ocean, which is kind of this huge broiling ocean, is littered with variously old decaying floating spaceships just bobbing on the water, and it's like it's pulled off really, really well. And because the reason it works, and I'd be interested in reading what people said on the forums about this, because I wonder if this is the kind of thing people would actually hate, is that it grounds all the mythology of Mass Effect and what's actually been going on all this time in pretty basic, just facts. Like, oh well, this is what this is, right? It only looks big and scary to you because it's much bigger and older than you can probably get your head around. But it is just an animal working on these principles, and you know what I mean. The same basic physics of life apply to it as to anything else. And I really like that. I really like the people pulling off proper cosmic horror, and it genuinely found it really creepy. Like there's a bit towards the end where Shepard finally goes off on his own, and drops into the ocean in this diving suit, and just as a sequence of the suit just falling and falling, and Shepard sort of. And there's like real dread at that moment. Incidentally, if you're interested in this, don't go on Dead End Thrills for the Mass Effect page, because Duncan Harris, who runs Dead End Thrills, amazing game screenshots, has a full screenshot of the thing that you see at the end of Leviathan. And I had actually seen it without realizing what it was. And then as soon as I saw the rest of the scene before the big reveal, I was like, okay, that's what this is. Which is kind of, you know, it's only a spoiler in terms of, well, it's a pretty huge spoiler, but it's a spoiler in terms of staging as well, and the way this thing is revealed to you. And yeah, wow, yeah, it actually gives me goosebumps thinking about it, because I love that kind of hard science just being scary because you're a stupid monkey that has somehow managed to fly around in space.
Because I designed a rocket in Kerbal Space.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's no ghost in the machine. You know what I mean? It's just that things are scary if they're bigger than you and older than you. Which is true, because I'm quite short.
I wish I could get into Mass Effect.
You should probably, I would say, it's the thing that you should play if you get a chunk of time.
I keep playing Mass Effect 1 and playing those first few hours of it, and just going, and bouncing off and going and doing something else.
Yeah, you can. I think the best way to play it, like my latter playthroughs of Mass Effect 1 were good because I knew all of the stuff about the races and stuff that I didn't need to ask the kind of endless investigate questions. And it's something that the games get better at as they go on as well. Mass Effect 3 streamlines that stuff a lot. But I played it just saying what I would actually say, right? So if something requires urgency, so if someone says, you've got to get over there and save them, you don't then respond with, why? You know what I mean? Like, which is there to fill in story. But if you then play it, if you go through it already knowing all that stuff and just going like, yep, okay, and then it suddenly actually, the pace lifts massively and the game actually becomes really slick, which is a weird, you know, Mass Effect is assumed to be stodgy and kind of ponderous, but it's only as ponderous as you make it.
Yeah. I think it's partly that I don't enjoy the combat that much. That it's the first game I know it gets better, or I've read that it gets better. Yeah. But in the first game, I don't like any of the weapons. I don't particularly like the cover system. Controls are slightly fiddly.
Choice of class can help with that as well. Like,
I can't remember how I was last playing it as, like a magic electrician man.
Magic electrician. Sentinel.
Okay, yeah, that was it.
Yeah, it's the one that's both tech and biotics. Yeah, because that's the one where you're not going to get an interesting gun.
Hooray!
Yeah. No interesting guns.
Yeah, they relaxed those restrictions a lot as it goes on. They figured it out basically. Mass Effect 1 had nice ideas, but they don't really play through. Go play through it as a infiltrator or someone who uses sniper rifles, because you get these big booming kind of headshot weapons that are satisfying by virtue of the fact that those things are good generally.
I just want to skip the combat, to be honest. I'm just in it for the world and the characters and stuff like that.
Then it's over pretty quick. Yeah, like, I think Mass Effect 1 still has some of the best executed dramatic moments in the series as well, in terms of twists and, like, moving the frame out and saying, well, you thought this was going on, much bigger than you think it is, and that kind of thing. And that's really what Leviathan returns to. Briefly on Omega, the new one, its production value is incredibly high, and it's much more expensive. Like it's like 15 quid DLC, but it's approximately the same length. And if you don't give a shit about Omega, which is the big space station for Mass Effect 2, or Carrie-Anne Moss's character Aria, then it's probably not worth it. But it is still pretty good. It's also the big difference between it is in In Leviathan, they've also recorded dialogue for the rest of the crew on the Normandy. So if you go and talk to people after the individual missions, they'll comment on what's happened. You can bring anyone you like on those missions, and they will talk about it. And it factors in things like your love interest and things like that. So if you jump into a diving suit to disappear onto the bottom of the ocean on a essentially haunted planet, and you're with your love interest, they will object to you doing this clearly suicidal thing, and stuff like that. Whereas Omega locks it basically. The character that you're with in Omega says at the start, I don't like anyone you hang out with. You're doing this alone, and you get basically just it's like a bottle episode that takes place entirely away from the Normandy, and you can't use any of the regular crew, and they don't comment on it at all before or after because they didn't get any of the voice actors back, which is a shame. But despite that, that actually allows them to force you to use 2 new interesting characters. Whereas I think everyone, if they otherwise they would have created this whole new interesting character, given the option of having them in your squad, and then you would have taken Garrus anyway.
Yeah.
So like
they should have got all the original voice actors to record a bunch of generic DLC reaction lines, such as, wow, that sounds like quite an adventure, Shepard.
Yeah. I can't believe you just did that.
How could you leave me behind on that amazing adventure you just had?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm glad I didn't go on that one.
Sounds like it was worth the purchase.
Yeah. What a great use of your time. Yeah, so that's the, I guess, broad strokes Mass Effect 3 DLC thing, which actually kind of segues neatly into what I wanted us to kind of orbit around, which was Games of the Year for last year, I guess. We collectively all expressed our, preferences in different genres and things, and the official piece of Game of the Year was Mass Effect 3. But it was more about kind of what your takeaway from last year was, Graham and Tom, in terms of what you reckon you'll still be playing this year, what you'll... Graham's doing a face. Like, what was your Game of the Year for last year, Graham? Yeah.
I don't know.
What did you vote for? It has to come down.
Well, we voted in categories, and I don't remember what I voted for in Game of the Year. I think Dishonored.
Yeah.
But I've just been playing over Christmas an awful lot of Far Cry 3. And I really like Far Cry 3. And maybe on pure fun levels, I actually prefer it.
Funness 12.
Yeah, maybe prefer that to Dishonored. Now that I've completed it and done all the outposts and stuff like that.
And the amazing story has come to its thrilling conclusion.
Yeah, I think I'm towards the end, and the fact that you're gritting your teeth makes me not optimistic.
I'm not. I don't mind the last few missions. I like them a lot better than all the missions that came before that. The kind of ending cutscene stuff is not particularly good or smart, but we shouldn't go into that. But yeah, I kind of Far Cry was brilliant, I thought. That's all.
Yeah. It makes me wish that games... I don't know how it got made, because it seems to have been one, I would think that was one of the hardest possible games to make, because they've had to make a huge open world game, and also a linear story, it's got as much scripted stuff and as much plot stuff and as, a Call of Duty game, or probably some even longer linear games. And then it's got a whole separate co-op campaign with all custom missions just for that. And then it's got multiplayer with 8 different game modes, from a deathmatch and capture the flag and stuff. And this ridiculous crafting system and vehicles of all these different kinds, and then this whole hunting system that's totally all the animals, AI and stuff. Every species has to react correctly to all the other species, and then all that stuff has to be spawned throughout the world, and also interact with all the pirates, and not screw anything up or break the story missions or whatever. But it also makes me my first reaction is, wow, that's incredible they even managed to do that, and also that the final game is good.
Yeah.
Even though they bit off so much, and it would have been, most companies would have, I think, just lost focus or screwed or let one thing interfere too much with the other thing. But then it also makes me think they probably shouldn't have done that. They probably should have just made a really cool open world game that they could have done in probably half the time, and released that. And then if they want to do a linear story game, do that separately, because that would be easier to make on its own than to try and combine it with this.
We were talking about this in New Year's, but I do kind of want just now the Infinite Outposts Far Cry game. Which, by far the best thing about it, or just tackling those outposts and killing the 10 guys and doing it how you want. And I just want more of that now. I want the game where it's like a survivalist thing. You get resources by capturing outposts, stealing things and killing everyone. And then you spend the time in between camping and hunting for food, and then traveling to other islands to then murder all the people in the outposts there. So
I think when you finish the, or maybe like just when you've captured all the outposts, once they all come to your side, there could be like a little cutscene that reveals the Rakyat tribe to be terrible assholes, and then you realise, God, I got to take it back for these pirates. They're the rightful owners of this island. I got to kill them all again. So you got to do every outpost.
And then you get the same cutscene at the end of that.
No, actually, the last cutscene was just a promotional video made.
They just changed the colour of like the handkerchiefs on people. So like, oh well, you get the blue Rakyat guys, they're assholes. Hand over the green Rakyat guys.
If they released that as DLC for £2 or something, I would buy that.
Yeah. Eternal twist DLC.
Yeah, like, again, like, this wasn't what you thought it was. Like, yeah. Man. Yeah, I mean, it's probably worth pointing out, actually, that Far Cry 3 came out after our Game of the Year voting, and really, or after the period when most of us were playing the games that kind of could factor in. It's a shame, really, because no one expected it to...
Yeah, I'd be interested to know how
knocking out the park like it did.
How it would have fared, really, because I know, like, everyone who's played it likes it, but it's I never really know like how much do you like it. So it's surprising to hear you say you had more fun with it than Dishonored.
I think when we were doing the feature, I think I had played quite a bit of Far Cry because I got it just before it came out, like a week or two. So I played more than half of it at that point, and I would still have voted for Dishonored at that point. Right. Now, right after having finished Far Cry, all I want is more Far Cry. Whereas when I finished Dishonored, I was okay. I think it's partly because, Dishonored is a plot. It is the story.
Yeah.
And once the story was done, I was quite satisfied. But
that's why Mass Effect beat it out for Game of the Year for me, because I played Dishonored twice, which is in theory a lot, but actually, unlike Chris, when I really like something, I play it 10 times. And I haven't really had the chance, had the urge to go back and play it a third time. Whereas Mass Effect 3, I've only played that through once because it's so fucking huge, but I will play it through again in sequence with all of the rest of it. And also it's just so huge. I got so much enjoyment out of it, and it was so exciting for so long.
What did you think, Chris, of 2012?
2012? I mean, it was
average.
Average, yeah. I thought it was really good. I mean, it's weird because people, I think, have assumed that it was a bad year for games for some reason.
It's good if you like years.
Yeah. I mean,
people just think that
as a way of delineating time, I think it's probably the most practical available to us. The orbits around the sun is probably a good basis that's universal, at least to us. So there you go. But like, I was really worried about Mass Effect 3, and that was my kind of the start of the year for me. It was like, oh god, no, because like when you've invested that much time in the series and you love the series that much, like. I realised that one way or another, like, also, I think I said this before, Mass Effect was probably the last series that I'll be a fan of, because I liked Mass Effect before I was a games journalist, right? I liked Mass Effect before I was sort of paid to follow games and follow the industry, and I was really glad that I didn't have to critically approach it from any angle. I mean, that I could just like it on my own terms, because, I guess my worst nightmare would have been, it probably wouldn't happen working for Gamer, but like being assigned Mass Effect to review but not being able to take my character with me, so I only play it for the first time with like the default, like that's like, literally that'd be that's maybe I would fire myself rather than do that.
On console, Max, because the console version they had for review couldn't
import
the save game, so most of the console guys had to play with just like a generic
awful thing.
Like just whatever choices it assumes you made, and that would have destroyed it for me. I would have been like, no.
Yeah, I would have refused. Like, I mean, if I was still a freelancer at that point, and like it's a great lucrative commission, I'd be like, no, I'm not doing it. Like, it's not worth it. Like, after that much time investment. But when I finished it, I had this really profound feeling that, like, it was. It's risky. Almost like I was done with games in the way I used to be. But it was
Chris resigns live on podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Bye, everyone. No, but like it was the last game that I will ever be kind of completely uncritically in love with. You know what I mean? Right. I will always love this series, and I was so terrified that they would fuck it up. So in some ways, even though I disagree, I understand why people the backlash about the ending and things. I don't believe by any stretch that it's as bad as the internet somehow decided that it was. But at the same time. I was so kind of like, please don't fuck it up, please don't fuck it up, please don't fuck it up. And to be honest, the reason for my enjoyment of Mass Effect 3 was like recursive relief that they hadn't fucked it up.
They didn't fuck this up. They didn't fuck that up. They didn't even fuck this up.
They bring this massive series-spanning conflict back, and then they resolve it really well, like 4 times over the course of that game. And like every time it was like, like some kind of building combo multiplier in BioWare over BioWare, like in my brain. And so when that was finished, it was like, I'll never be a fan of games again, because that could have gone so badly. And so the rest of the year has been kind of like actually figuring out how to be much more kind of sort of critical in my
detached and cynical.
Detached, yeah. It was
inside.
It was the death of youth and the end of childish things. But then, but I think I thought it was a great year. I think given how uncertain it looked for MMOs and stuff, which for better or worse is my bag, I guess, like previously in 2011, and if you look at what happened with MMOs this year, last year, with Guild Wars, as far as I'm concerned, being the only actually seriously forward-thinking MMO released, I didn't get on with the Secret World at all, because I didn't like the writing, and therefore it didn't do anything for me, because I didn't think it was a particularly good MMO underneath that. And the Old Republic obviously has had problems, despite me liking that game. It's got problems, and the problems everyone could have called it would have, just simply looking at the plan for this is the thing you're making, has sort of played out. And so it was sort of interesting that but nonetheless, it was the year we got a actually substantially innovative MMO that actually makes you think, oh, maybe this genre isn't mined out now. So that's, I think a major thing for the PC, basically, to have I mean, I don't know if any game ever will do WoW numbers in terms of penetration stuff, or if it'll be League of Legends.
Does anyone have a kind of snappy way to sum up 2012? That's good about the MMOs, but what about more generally the PC games?
I wrote the intro for our Games of the Year roundup, so I could copy myself from that.
What did you say? I read it.
I felt like times. Before it happened, like at the end of 2011, all the stuff that was exciting about 2012 was a really big unknown. Like Chris says, like Mass Effect 3, I actually going to, make it work, and all the other examples that I listed in the intro, but now cannot recall off the top of my head, of games that could have been amazing, but also could have really bombed. And so I was quite anxious about it before. And then by the end of it, I think almost all of them, except for Hitman, turned out to be great.
It was like Far Cry 3 turning out to be great. I mean, actually, the one I'd say, the other disappointment I would say is Assassin's Creed 3.
I haven't played that. So.
End of the big series that completely fucked it up in terms of narrative and stuff like that. Like, the end of Assassin's Creed 3 is abominable.
That, again, I think was later than our Game of the Year roundup.
Wouldn't have gotten anywhere.
Yeah. Ludwig, the editor of Joystick, was saying that nobody on their team voted for it in any category for Game of the Year.
Well, I mean, I think it's too messy. I mean, talking about Far Cry 3 being absurdly quixotically big in terms of all the different features it's got. Assassin's Creed 3 is the same. It's Ubisoft's resources. Right. Just fire people at it until there's more game here. But in Far Cry 3,
that's their slogan, I believe.
Yeah, indeed. I think someone yells "bundle" and then the game happens. But Assassin's Creed 3 didn't survive that process.
There was there was no guarantee at the start of the year that Dishonored was going to be as good as it was. Like, although it had big names behind it, the kind of previews that we'd seen hadn't been wholly positive or overwhelming. And and the other big thing is PlanetSide 2.
Yeah,
which was goodness, that's an ambitious game.
Well, actually,
it's not perfect. It's got flaws. They're still working on it, but they seem to have done a great job considering.
Well, maybe that's it then. Maybe that's the pithy.
And XCOM, of course, remaking XCOM.
XCOM, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Maybe that's our pithy summary of 2012 then, in a way. It's like a whole bunch of unknowns, enemy unknowns at the start of the year.
Oh, God. Yeah.
The actually, the more often than not.
Thank God I resisted that pun in my
the
intro.
industry basically probably knocked it out of the park more than they fucked it up. That
there's always unknowns in every year. You're never going to know what's going to be good in 2013 yet. But I think it's a sign that 2012 people were reasonably ambitious, and also that they brought back a lot of things that we loved previously, like XCOM, like PlanetSide, and so on.
Too, actually, was.
Yeah, and Guild Wars, and and actually did okay with it. They didn't.
Maybe, yeah, but I think that's a defining feeling. I remember.
Yeah, we mostly didn't fuck it up.
Indeed, yeah. I remember in February seeing Dishonored for the first time, at a demonstration. I didn't play it, but was watching it demoed, and it was the Golden Cat mission, which is a great mission anyway. But watching it and thinking, oh God, this is actually going to be really fucking good. Even though the moment you realise that, oh, actually no, this is, you can see 6 months in the future when this is suddenly big, and you know, I mean, obviously there's ways for it to be disappointing or to have flaws, but it's like, okay, well, if this is this and extended out, you know, if this is the quality of the whole game, which in the end it pretty much was, then you can see the 90 plus there. You know what I mean? It's sort of hovering over the game already, and like that's the sign where you go, oh, okay, yeah, no, I've just realised that September is going to be good now. You know what I mean? You realise that in February, and I think maybe that's sort of the year of that. Or like playing Guild Wars for the first time and going, oh, okay, it's going to be good as well. And then like that's it's the maybes becoming actually good games probably at a higher frequency than
we had that moment with BioShock Infinite.
Yay.
Yeah, that's good to know. Before we segue onto that, because we should talk about that actually. That's a thing.
Yeah.
We were talking about this with Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 2, where Far Cry 2 was a really ambitious game, really great in a lot of different ways, but then it had a bunch of flaws, and you were saying how it was hard to see how you fix those things, and then Far Cry 3 just totally does.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of things where it was almost... The things that I didn't like about Far Cry 2, I generally loved... Well, I very much liked it. I remember specifically saying at the time that I didn't love it, so I won't say that now. But I loved the atmosphere and I loved the kind of sense of place, and it was really exciting and really felt incredibly real in a way lots of game worlds don't. And a lot of the choices they made that I didn't like were kind of about it being real, like the guns jamming, I didn't enjoy. And people respawning? No, wait, that's not realistic. But they did, I know... Clinton Hawking said that the reason that they had people respawn on the outposts is they didn't want you to empty the world, didn't want the world to feel barren once you'd like gone, destroyed.
And now in Far Cry 3, I want all the outposts to come back, and so I could fight them again.
Well, so so he was onto something. But like when he said that, it wasn't clear. Like, okay, so what would it have been like if you just didn't have it respawning? Like, would it really feel that barren? Would it really ruin the world? And Far Cry 3 comes on, kind of answers that, and to me, it doesn't. Like, it still feels like a really rich and interesting world. And the fact that there's areas of it that are much safer, like there are no patrols on the roads between outposts that you've taken over, or there are, but they're friendly patrols. That, to me, doesn't make that world feel empty. It makes it feel like I've changed it. It makes me feel a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
Like, this is my area now, that's my home, and I don't want to go back and re-explore that because that's the bit I've already seen, so I want to carry on exploring the islands. And it's only when you've completely taken over all of them, that's the only time when like, now there isn't anything for me to do. But I don't mind that because I kind of want to have accomplished something.
Yeah. Also,
and I can just start the game again if I like.
Yeah, exactly. I'm happy for games to end as well. I think that's one thing. Is like this assumption that you need infinite game out of every game, but actually no, I kind of want to have like, okay, I've beaten Far Cry now, and I'm allowed to stop. Like,
yeah.
And it was the same with XCOM, where everyone, like, I know we just mentioned XCOM, but just to go into greater detail, everyone was really skeptical that they would be able to take what was hard and brutal and fun about the original and update it, and they just went, nope. No, we got this.
Figured it out.
It's almost like people are better at making games now than they almost have
Yeah.
been.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's such an unpopular viewpoint, maybe in the age of I made a game once, please kickstart me. But like I do think it's true. Like, I think there's more people in the industry and therefore more talent across the board, and people are probably a lot of smart people who are able to locate why things were good and recapture it.
And it's cool because I think a lot of the games that that inspire these things and that were brilliant at the time wouldn't be brilliant if you just released an exact copy of them today.
No.
Like, I mean, XCOM, I can't really judge it because I haven't played it enough, but the reason I haven't played it enough is that I tried to play it. And it's fucking horrible to interact with on almost every level. It's just a really nasty thing to use. It's just sort of got immediate problems with how you interact with it. I'm sure it is absolutely brilliant once you get into it, but I'm glad that they didn't just release an identical thing today because it would have had serious problems.
It's like, I mean, without doing too much, the reason that Guild Wars was good was it kind of went, okay, why is EverQuest exciting? What is interesting about this idea? And the interesting thing about this idea is that you run off and you explore a big world, and that there are monsters in that world, and you can kill them with your friends. And that's basically the premise, right? That's what's fun about it. And then it's like, well, what's happened to that over the years? So much like weird sort of like top heavy mechanics that only do one thing have been added, like, oh well, if this guy's hit that monster, then you're not allowed to hit it, or you are, but you're not going to get rewarded for it, and you really would rather you didn't, so please don't. Could you leave, please? Like, and then realizing you can take away all that stuff and actually you get the game back. Like you it might seem looser, but actually you've just actually remembered why games are fun in the first place. Maybe it was the year of like philosophically tight games, games that actually weren't compromised by successive generations of like wobbly game design nonsense sort of sitting on top of them.
Yeah, I think there's certainly an element of that. I don't know. I'm really upbeat now about,
Yeah.
about 2012. Well done, 2012. Well done from learning
And good
from the
job
past.
for not ending the world as well.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
Must take a restraint.
Yeah, I know.
Now we should segue on to 2013. And very briefly talk about one of the earliest games that are coming out this year that we're most excited about, BioShock Infinite.
In March.
Yes.
I'm going to recount the story I told you the other day, which is when I got to the event to see BioShock Infinite, I was actually going to play it, which was a huge deal because no one had played it before outside of Irrational. And we were led into this room in a hotel to kind of be talked to a little bit before we got to play it. And we're all sitting there in these little chairs looking at a big screen with BioShock Infinite splash screen on it. Ken Levine comes in and thanks us all for coming and is very nice. And then he says, before we actually get into like all the good stuff that you're going to play today, and there is some bad news. And he says, look, there's really no good way to say this. And we talked a lot internally about how we should message it and how we were going to, make sure this wasn't a big deal, a big problem. But I just said, no, look, I'm just going to be totally honest. I'm just going to come out and say it. I'm like, what the fuck is this? What is happening to this game? Is it going to have Game Spinners live? Yeah. And then he talks for like 5 minutes about this guy. I can't remember his name. I'm going to say James Taylor, because that's the name that just sprang into my head. It's not him. But,
singer, isn't it?
And James has been so great. He's come down. He's from 2K, and he's been working with us for the last few weeks. He's been looking at every aspect of the game, and he's been working long hours. And he's picking up this James guy. I'm like, what? Is Ken Levine resigning? Is this guy going to replace him or something? Are they handing it over to 2K? Is Irrational folding? And then at the end of it, he says, yeah, we looked at it and we decided to it does need a few more weeks polish, so it'll be out in March instead of February. That was it. Come on. It's like a 3-week delay or something. Oh, for fuck's sake. And then we got to play it.
And what was that like?
It was amazing. It was just, that the opening to BioShock is really fucking good.
Yes.
It's like that. And it's that fucking good for like an hour and a half of just pure holy shit, look at that. Holy shit, look at that. Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Look at that. Oh my God. And that sense of exploring a place that you've just never seen anything like it before. And sort of walking around it and trying to absorb all the detail and all the kind of
awesome.
The richness and the amazing amount of it's a mixture of it's very detailed, but then also it's just all so unique. Everything, I know that's an incorrect use of the word unique, but it's also distinctive. So much of it is unique. Every place is dominated by some massive statue or piece of art or piece of architecture that is nowhere else in the whole game. As far as I've played, maybe it all just repeats after the first 5 hours.
You do it all backwards after the first 5 hours?
Oh, there's a twist, and everyone turns out to be bad instead of good. And it's so there's this amazing sense of a totally new place and place that's been crafted so beautifully, and it's all so interesting and also different to each other. And the way the story is, not even so much the story, but the sort of the fiction of the place, the backstory, really, who are these people? Yeah, you're going to a place that you've never that exists completely outside of our real world, and is so weird that you're almost kind of doubting whether it's going to turn out to be real in the game. Is this just going to be a dream my character had? Because this is completely nuts. It's a floating city, but there's so much kind of detail and specifics in who these people are, why they live here, what they think about it, who their founder is. And what's going on, and how they feel about each other, and how all the different factions that are kind of rising up around it. There's that sense of that there has been a lot of writing they did before they made this game, or that's gone into the background. And there's so much more information here that I haven't been told yet. And there's so many little things that you just think, what the fuck happened with that? There's certain characters that keep popping up in ways that are deeply mysterious. It's just it's not this. I don't want to spoil what it is, so I'm going to try and talk about it in analogous terms. But in Lost, Jack keeps seeing his father just standing in the sea. The first time that happens, you don't know it's his father. Jack does, but you don't. And so there's just a weird fucking dude standing in the sea, and then he vanishes. And that was in the middle of the kind of the normal island stuff, which was just we're crashed and we're having a survival type drama, and that sense of having mysteries layered on top of things. That like you think the monster is the really weird thing about Lost, and then there's just a dude standing in the ocean, and in some ways that's weirder.
Yeah.
It definitely has that
Because
sense.
if you keep watching Lost, that becomes dumber. But
yes, and I asked Ken about that, and he said, "Oh, they do all get resolved." And I said, "That's what they said about Lost."
Well, yeah, you can always spoil Lost by ruining the thing you just said about the monster and the dude in the sea, but never mind.
Okay.
They're the same.
Yeah. What else should I talk about?
You mentioned in the previews and talking to you about it that it's more of a kind of, without this being a bad word, a linear experience in the original BioShock, like mechanically. Is that true?
It's less formulaic, which is the upside of being more story driven. So it is more story driven. Like there's characters in it, and there are people who aren't trying to kill you, and they will talk to you. And there's
people that aren't tape recorders.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so like a lot of the stuff that could have been done through audio diaries is now you actually just see it actually happen because there are real people. And once you find Elizabeth, which doesn't happen for a few hours. She's with you all the time and comments on everything, and she's almost kind of drives it a little bit in that everything you're doing is about her, and she's often the person who kind of decides, let's do this. And so she kind of helps it be more story driven, so you know where you're going, because Elizabeth's saying, hey, we've got to go and do this. So it is much more like everywhere you're going there because there's a specific story reason why you need to get to that place, whereas in BioShock it was more like, let's just progress through Rapture until we find the... and there were, sub-objectives, and, once you're in Fort Frolic, the objective is Fort Frolic, is to confront Sander Cohen, but it was mostly just, I know I've eventually got to confront Andrew Ryan.
It's rescuing Atlas's family for a lot of the early part.
And the time between when you're given that objective and when you actually accomplish it is pretty fucking huge, and it's all just progressed through this bit. Whereas BioShock Infinite, you kind of, in each area, you know what you're trying to do there, and... you do it, and then you move on to the next area, and there's a new the plot is actually changing, so you complete the objective, and then there's another reason you've got to do something else, and it certainly doesn't feel linear in the sort of, I don't know, that word's become so negative because there have been so many shitty fucking linear games.
Yeah.
And it's not that they're not shitty just because they're linear, they're shitty because they restrict the player from doing things you would naturally want to do. And they make you feel like you're being controlled, and they make you feel like it's just a movie and you're just supposed to have the experience they want you to have. Whereas BioShock Infinite, there's big open areas, you've always got a lot of leeway in like where you go. But, the objective is given to you and by the story, and you complete the objective and then you get another objective. So it is a linear sequence of things, but it doesn't feel restrictive at all. And like Half-Life, it's Half-Life 2. There's a story that's happening, but it doesn't take control away from you to tell it. It's not like, then it cuts to a cutscene where Booker rescues Elizabeth. Like anything that you do. And it never takes control away from you as far as I can remember. And it's got that just same philosophy as Half-Life. It's just respect the player, don't force him to do something.
I'm really excited about that video game.
I can't really think of a big studio which is putting the kind of resources behind a reasonable length single player scripted experience, like
with no multiplayer component. And
you talked about how Ubisoft's strategy for all of their games is throw people at it until there's more game, and what they do is they make 4 games. I like Far Cry is the kind of systemic outpost stuff, it's the single player stuff, it's the co-op campaign, and it's the multiplayer. And Assassin's Creed is the same way, whereas BioShock Infinite is, no, we're just doing the single player, but maybe we also have 600 people and they're all just making assets. And the only other scripted single player games are really, well, Dishonored, which is made by Arcane, who are still a fairly small studio, and maybe Dishonored 2 will be more down this line if it sells well enough, but this is their new IP. Or Call of Duty, which is they're again doing 3-4 different modes, and they're farming out one every 12 months. So it's really exciting to see someone just pile everything into a single 15-hour-long experience.
They've been working on it for absolutely ages, basically the end of BioShock, because Ken didn't make BioShock 2. And although people have transferred between the two studios, that's how long it's been worked on.
Yeah. Well, Metro is the other one. That's but it's not. I mean, it's THQ, so it's middleweight publisher.
Yeah.
And 4A Games, who are in a Ukrainian studio, who've only ever made Metro games because they created they're ex
GSC,
the ex-Stalker devs. So, and it's also very within that remit as well. And I think probably the development culture that surrounds that makes making a single player slightly simulated sort of atmospheric shooter far more part of just what that part of the world produces in terms of interests, like than it is sort of, I guess, out here it's sort of, it's more outlandish to just be like, no, what we're doing is this, and they removed multiplayer from Metro.
And BioShock, didn't they? Wasn't BioShock originally supposed to have multiplayer, and then they
I can't remember if
cancelled
they
it?
said it would, but there was rumours about it a lot.
There's been rumours about Infinite multiplayer because they were hiring.
And I think they have confirmed now that it won't, haven't they?
Yeah.
Okay.
And now Tomb Raider's getting multiplayer, apparently. Natural fit.
Yeah, it's such an. I mean, maybe it's a. I mean, I wonder if it does, because I mean, interestingly, Far Cry did do huge numbers over Christmas. It was the Christmas #1 in the UK. It beat Call of Duty, which is pretty big actually. And you can imagine there's like the round of high fives at Ubisoft took fucking ages because there were 700 people.
Yeah, had to fly to Shanghai.
Yeah, exactly. Like, whoever the project manager on that was running down this long line of people for a long time, high-fiving them.
High fives around the world.
Yeah, exactly. And so possibly the takeaway from that for them will be, well, this is how you beat Call of Duty. Get a bigger people cannon.
Quad barrel.
I mean, obviously, and it wasn't. I mean, Black Ops 2, I think, was obviously well received in some ways and badly received in others. Multiplayer was apparently quite good, but nonetheless, I guess it's considered an off-year Call of Duty because Black Ops has always been the smaller brand. I hate the word brand, but there you go.
Yeah.
So maybe that's it. But like, still, I'm sort of worried that the success of Far Cry will entrench that model of like all games have to be these vast, comprehensive sort of entertainment boxes.
But then maybe BioShock Infinite proves otherwise. Maybe it's
Hopefully.
Half-Life 2 and,
People are really excited about it, which is, I guess that's not really saying much, but like, I was skeptical that I would be able to persuade people to be excited about it because it is like so much that I loved about it was hard to communicate or just sort of like, so you had to be there, man. It was it was amazing. Like the best thing about it is I can't describe how rich and detailed and awesome it was, and that's a rubbish thing to say. But the comments on like just my first impressions post were people were getting really excited about it. And I think like you just say Half-Life 2 really and people get what you mean.
Yeah. I remember like playing the opening Half-Life 2 for the first time, having my mind blown. Just being in the train station, and, like, the bit when really early on where you don't have weapons and you're being chased by the Combine. Like, it suddenly feels like you're in a world and you're being persecuted. I was being chased by the Marcus Block by Hitler. One might say. Wonder how these patterns get embedded in our brains. But like I remember after I played like the first hour of Half-Life 2, then I quit and started again. Not because I want to do that again. Like, I'm sure this game is great. Like, I haven't even had a gun yet, but that was amazing. Like, I want to do that again, and that's kind of what I want. And same with BioShock 1 was so fucking awesome. Should we do questions from Twitter really quickly?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. Amanda Garcia asks, "How was your Christmas?"
Good.
Yep.
Thank you.
I ate a lot of food.
I got a blowtorch. I mean, blowtorching everything.
Cars.
Yeah. My enemies.
Really into metalwork now.
I got a Kindle, which is great,
Oh,
and
cool.
Egyptian laser chess, which has nothing to do with chess, but has lasers and mirrors and things, and it's Egyptian themed, which is pretty good.
I can't decide whether we should ask or not.
Okay,
Time restraint.
okay.
What was the best
Can you
thing?
explain it quickly?
Yes. Okay. So basically, it's a grid layout. I don't know exactly how big the grid is, and you have pieces. The aim, and you have a sphinx that fires a laser that sits in. Each player has
This
one.
does sound great.
Sits in the corner of the board, and the sphinx can't move. It can rotate 90 degrees, but that's it. That's all the sphinx can do. And then you have various other pieces, including. The aim is to get the laser to hit the other guy's pharaoh, which is essentially a king, right? But the pharaoh can't do anything, can move, it can't really, has no mirrors on it. It's vulnerable. Then you have little Anubis guys who can be hit in the face, but nowhere else, or else they're out. And then you have tiles that have you have units that are basically half pyramids that have a mirror on one on the dissected side, and then two sides that are plastic. And if you get hit in the plastic side, it's eliminated. But obviously, you can use it to bounce the light. So, and then you have sort of mirrors that are diagonal across the square piece.
And then is it turn-based?
Yes. So a turn is you can move any square like a king in chess, so one space in any point around in a square around it, or rotate it. And then every time you move, you have to fire your laser.
I find that in life.
Yes, indeed. And the idea being that you take one move, then you fire your laser, then the other guy takes his move and fires a laser, and you're sort of trying to engineer situations for the other guy as well. Because if you can laser your own pharaoh if you're careless, so you can be sort of trying to kind of seize control.
Ancient Egyptian proverb.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I don't know. Apparently, people used to play it with like beams of sunlight at particular times of day and stuff, and that's where it came from. But it sounds incredibly tenuous to me.
Time of day when the sun turns into a laser,
yeah,
it's like doesn't diffract.
Well, my magnifying glass or something, but it's all about kind of trying to control parts of the board. Like, so you kind of lock down this area. If they fire a laser into there, you've kind of got control of it, for better or worse, because you've kind of it's relying on your pieces being where they are. It's cool. It's actually pretty fun. And the way it works on light chess, there's a classic starting configuration of pieces, but there's lots of alternate ones that are like more aggressive or more defensive or evolve faster or slower and things like that. It's cool. You should come around and play Egyptian laser chess.
I want to now.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
What was the best thing you blowtorched? What was the most delicious food?
It was a fajita with red peppers and onions and chicken, and I blowtorched the red peppers and the onions and a little bit of the chicken. Half accidentally and half just, what would this taste like? But yeah, you make it absolutely like black. And it's great because like burnt things actually taste great, but you don't burn things because the whole thing dries out and then it's got this kind of like carbony kind of dustiness, which is kind of horrible. But like a little bit of burnt stuff is awesome on almost anything. So blowtorches let you burn just a little bit.
Play with blowtorches, kids.
Yep. Play with as much fire as you can.
How was your Christmas, Graham?
It was good. I got a toy DeLorean from 1989.
Awesome.
A DeLorean from Back to the Future 2. Back to the Future 2 high-speed racer, and it is too fast. It's not like a car you wind back and let it go and it goes forward. There's the switch on the bottom. You turn it on, and the engine starts to spin, and the back wheels just immediately start going. And if you let it go, then it just flies across the room, smashes into walls, flips upside down, flips back around, smashes into another wall. If I let it go in the street, then I would just never see it again. I wouldn't be able to catch it.
88 miles per hour.
I think maybe more. Good thing the time circuits aren't on.
Yeah, indeed.
You need a car to catch it.
Oh. The reflection for Back to the Future is genuinely adorable. Jesse Barton asks, who drinks the most coffee out of the PC Gamer crew? I was thinking about this. Because I drink quite a lot of coffee, but I don't know if it's enough to qualify as most.
I have one coffee in the morning and then sometimes I have a coffee at work, but that's it.
I have two. I have 2 cups of coffee a day, black coffee. One in the morning, one mid-afternoon. Graham, do you drink much coffee?
I drink coffee, but most days I don't have any.
Yeah, I think it might be Senior, but he drinks lattes, so it balances out.
I tell you, he does drink a lot of coffee. He does work for PC Gamer, but Steve Fogarty, former editor of PC Zone, I thought he was joking when he told me how much coffee he drinks. Like, it's absurd.
Rich drinks an absurd amount of Diet Pepsi.
Yeah.
Like, just absurd, but...
When I'm at home, I drink an absurd amount as well, and cans. But with coffee, it doesn't fit into my day. I don't want to spend 2-3 quid buying it downstairs, but I don't want to bring in my stuff from home to make it at work, and I can't be bothered to get up early enough to make it before I come into work. And then when I get home at 7, 8 o'clock, I don't really want
coffee.
A big hit of caffeine.
£1.12.
It's £1.12 for a black coffee from the cafeteria.
Is it?
Yeah, no, it's pretty.
I've bought it a bunch of times and just haven't noticed how much. I just assumed I was being screwed when the amount was saying, it's really expensive coffee.
A strange combination of money not conscious, but also very money conscious.
Yeah. I'm money conscious, but I don't read the prices on things. Let's assume it's all bad. Good. Yeah, so probably, like, in terms of actually, like, liquid quantity, probably Tom Senior. In terms of caffeine count, it's anyone's game. Okay, there's your answer, Jesse. Jeremy Peel asks, who writes for PC Games N.
And has written for us
and
as
has
well.
written for us, and alongside Steve Fogarty, man who drinks the most coffee in games.
Oh, yeah.
Age of Empires Online is dead. Not just dead, but not dead, stopped. Hang on. I'll get to the question a bit. What do you think gas-powered games are making? Question mark. They got that countdown thing, don't they?
Yeah, they do. 10 days to go. Well, 9 days now.
So what do you reckon it is? You don't have to make a face if you know.
Werewolves on the moon.
Werewolf, Supreme Werewolf.
It's full moon all the time on the moon during the day.
It's blown my mind. But would they? I
hope it turns out to be that.
Would they howl at the earth?
If it does turn out to be that, and they're listening to this, they were just like, "What the fuck, you goddamn wizard!"
High concept embargo breaks.
I think they're making a big budget PC adaptation of Egyptian laser chess.
Wow, I don't know. It seems a bit out of their wheelhouse. Big, massive, sprawling strategy things. Not
They'd make it real time. Yeah.
Real time, supreme, total Egyptian.
Massive Anubis statues marching across.
Yeah.
Mirrors on
Those
the back.
little green nano makey things that are in every Total Annihilation Supreme Commander game. The beam that makes things. The makey beam. Shut up. No, that's a really good answer. So, yeah, fair enough. Kledos Sani asks, what do you think will be the most interesting game this year? And we obviously, BioShock, we're pretty excited about. But, interesting is kind of a different measure. I guess maybe more about potential. What's the equivalent now that XCOM, Dishonored, and Guild Wars and all those other games that were unknown sat in this time last year?
Well, there's some, super unknown stuff. Some of which might be 2014, like Watch Dogs.
Yeah, Watch Dogs,
and
example.
2013 it has Remember Me, which I'm super skeptical about.
The Naughty Dog thing.
Is it Naughty Dog?
I thought it was
It's
someone else.
Capcom, I think, isn't it? Or something like that.
Am I getting confused?
Remember Me is third person, Mirror's Edge, Deus Ex.
Naughty Dog
set
game,
in
The Last
New
of Us.
Sorry,
Paris.
no, I was getting confused with The Last of Us and also the one David Cage is making. Sorry, there's lots of sort of...
Beyond? No,
Beyond Two Souls.
That's
There's Beyond Two Souls, there's The Last of Us and Remember Me, and I keep getting those games mixed up.
Remember Me is you're a woman in a near future Paris called Neo Paris. She can hack people and buildings, kind of like Syndicate, and she has memory problems. Probably she's an amnesiac. I don't remember.
Can't remember whether
I've
she's
forgotten
an
what
amnesia.
memory problems she's got.
And she can climb around the outside of buildings and stuff like that. And it looks like it's Mirror's Edge meets Deus Ex, and that should be great. But I'm really
But yeah,
so that puts it in the unknown. Could be interesting. Is interesting. Category.
Yeah.
Category.
Barclay too will probably be interesting.
Yeah.
You mentioned Neo Paris, and that's it. Is it Neo New York?
Yeah.
to be fair, it's a
one
Futurama
is-
joke, but anyway.
First one's set in Neo New York. I don't know where the second one is set. If it's in the same point.
New York. Neo.
Can anyone remember the full name of that game? Because I bet
No.
you can't.
I didn't attempt to. It's very, very long.
I can't remember the full thing.
It's 40 words long.
Yeah. Oliver Janman says, if you had to spend 6 months on a deserted island with a PC with one game installed, what game would you want it to be?
Do we have an internet connection?
It's not specified. I'm going to guess no.
Okay.
Deus Ex 1 then.
Tropica.
I want something with a level editor so I can make my own stuff for it.
Yeah.
I guess Minecraft is pretty good.
Minecraft is tempting.
I was going to say something like Dragon Age Origins because it's huge and it's got a really good tool set. Or maybe Morrowind or with
Yeah, I'd take Skyrim.
Yeah.
I can make stuff in that.
I would take Skyrim, except I've almost completely explored it now.
I actually
Played
finished
it so fucking much.
I finished the main quest in Skyrim over the break, and I think I mentioned finally kind of beat the last boss and things. And the last set piece is cool, but returning to the world and no one giving two shits about you ever again is still that Elder Scrolls thing I wish they would learn how to fix. Yeah.
Actually, yeah, I think I'll go for Minecraft, and I just confine myself to one world. So if I want to do something completely different, I'd have to go somewhere else in that world.
might
So I'd end
go
up with this
for-
huge thing.
Because don't have an internet connection, so therefore I can't get really good at Dota or StarCraft. I'd probably take Super Hexagon and return to Civilization
Christ.
6 months later. Because it does specify you were, stranded or only stranded for 6 months. Return to
Okay.
Super Hexagon 6 months. Return to Civilization 6 months later, like a huge beard, emaciated, but fucking amazing. Super
Very
Hexagon.
twitchy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think you'd probably go mad and kill
Yeah.
yourself.
What's your best time on Hexagon mode?
Regular Hexagon. Have you beaten me now?
No, I was that 0.04
Yeah, okay,
seconds
because it's
behind you.
still something like 108.7 and you're like 108.2.
Okay, I haven't touched it since then. So.
Yeah, the rivalry. We should probably pick that rivalry up again. Christian Varlan asks, what new thing will Steam come out with this year to keep it fresh? And obviously, we don't know. So, so it might be, what would you reckon? Last year was Greenlight and workshop stuff really exploding, and then software, and then Linux support, and all these other things that have happened.
Linux
I think it'd
support
be-
isn't launched yet.
Well, no, but okay, maybe that's it then. Maybe
I think they'll release Steam Red Light, in which players can vote for games they wanted to be taken off Steam because they're fucking sick of them. I don't think that.
there was.
I have no idea.
What do they do? Tiny picture mode, which makes every game work on your phone.
Things that are like, I have some ideas, but they're based on things I know that I'm not allowed to know. So I can't really say.
Okay, fair enough. Barry White says, I'm not convinced is the Barry White. Any bold predictions for PC Gamer in 2013?
PC Gamer.
PC Gaming.
PC Gaming.
I think some new games come out. Some of them are quite good.
Bold. He said bold.
Red Light was a bold prediction. A wrong prediction. But.
Well, I think it'll be a new console generation, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how that impacts upon PC as a platform, and whether the launch titles for those new consoles are also available on PC.
I think the new console generation will have the wind taken of itself more than anyone expects by the availability of things to sit on your TV and play games in other formats. Not that it's not Valve making a console or anyone else making a console. It's basically a PC. It's the whole concept becoming muddy, basically. When the new Xbox or whatever needs to be a PC in a bunch of different ways, connectivity, networking, and probably cloud storage and all of these other things that PC does by default. It only takes someone it's already getting hard to meaningfully differentiate in some ways. So it'll get harder, and I think probably the new consoles will come out, and it'll be important for some people, but I think that will continue. It'll be interesting to watch. I mean, you say, will they be ported to the PC? I genuinely don't see people having a choice. Like, I think it's going to be kind of essential for people to have a decent PC presence of their game. Like, it's not, I don't think it's going to be the closed market it once was. Craig McCormick, who I don't know if it's related to Rich, and we'll find out, asks, do you think...
Have you seen my brother?
Do you think the numerous and growing problems with War Z are dooming it for future success with DayZ around the corner? I think they're dooming it for future success, regardless of the trajectory of DayZ. But
I think War Z has had a reputation since announcement because it's called the War Z, and it was announced very briefly after a game called DayZ
became hugely popular,
which kind of tinted it rightly or wrongly, and then they have continued to pick up people's aspersions and smear them all over themselves and
dance around.
Yeah. So yes, that one. Devin Mapes asks, what mechs do you guys use in MechWarrior Online? What are your favourite weapons? Am I the only person who plays MechWarrior Online?
I think so.
Yeah, I haven't.
I like the Raven, even though it's rubbish. And I've wrote a thing about this for PC Gamer because it was my favourite mech in MechWarrior 2. And it's the little scout mech that looks like a bird. And it's got backwards jointed legs and a silly face. Because mechs have faces, shut up. But I like it because it's weird. Because it runs around in this kind of like weird sort of little flightless bird-like way. And none of these are good mechanical reasons to play it. It should be an electronic warfare mech, and last time I played it, which admittedly was a while ago, they hadn't actually properly implemented electronic warfare, so it was just a bad mech. Favorite weapons-wise, I just load it up with I think it's 2 small lasers and 1 medium laser, and nip at people and run away, and nip at them and run away from behind a building, and then nip back out again and nip at them. And never get any kills or contribute meaningfully to what my team is attempting to achieve.
Good choice.
But yeah. So yes, that's that. Will asks, if you could put 2 games together to make the ultimate mash of gaming legend.
I think we get this question a lot, don't we?
Yeah, what would they be? I haven't seen this from recently.
I always wanted Hitman and GTA. So GTA to kind of drive to the mission, and then you do the hit and Hitman, and then how much heat you attract, like during the kind of stealthy bit, determines how many police are after you as you run away.
Yeah. I don't want to crib for myself, but I know the game I desperately want to see because I wrote it for an armchair designer, which is Wing Commander plus Mass Effect. So you take away all the bullshit FMV from Wing Commander and replace it with Mass Effect style walking around a ship talking to people. Perfect game.
I want SimCity combined with Dwarf Fortress. And Dwarf Fortress is almost SimCity, but I want Dwarf Fortress in a modern world, basically.
Fortress.
Yeah. Yep.
Man house.
I want dwarfs that can ride buses to their jobs.
Oh, I see. So keep the dwarfs.
Post-industrial revolution Dwarf Fortress. Cool. Adam Plachati, sorry if I get that wrong. Is the gaming world going to end in 2013 because there are absolutely no games coming out in the second half of the year? There are absolutely games coming out in the second half of the year. It's just the publishers don't know how to refer to them yet.
Yeah, exactly. Like if it's more than 6 months away, they probably don't know how far away it is.
But it's also a console generation that hasn't been announced yet. And games, it's hard for people to announce their games. And you ask them, so what's this coming out on? And they go, and then run
boxes,
away. And then actually what happens is the PR guy smokes on a smoke bomb and then and then they vanish.
You hear sounds of glass breaking.
Yeah, exactly. And then the sirens in the distance and then silence and you have nothing to say. So that's that. So yeah, there will be games in the second half of next year. There will be a Battlefield computer game almost certainly.
So saying, why is the third quarter of 2016 so barren? Nothing's coming out then, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. Probably the same reason that 2013 is barren. So no, the gaming world is not going to end. Gaming world never changes. John Lenton, to finish up, asks, do you think the recent upsurge in PC gaming, this is interesting, will be curtailed by the announcement and release of the new consoles? As in, we've had this kind of end-of-generation upswing in things happening on PC.
I think it might curtail people buying new PCs, but they already have their PCs. And that's what mainly fuels the upsurge.
And it's very unlikely that the new consoles will be more powerful than if you've got a decent PC. Your PC is now. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I don't think it will curtail from a development perspective. I think it will change the narrative that the press write about. And
the press.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those guys.
There was a long time when all the stories about the PC were, is the PC dying? Is the PC dying? And no, it was not. But that was the story that everyone wrote.
Because nobody
about.
Had any figures.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because, lots of games journalists predominantly play on console, and that's still true. But even the console guys know at this point that PC is doing very well. All the games look much better on PC, and where they're struggling to play Skyrim on PlayStation 3 because it's buggy and it doesn't work and so on, or low-res textures in Battlefield 3, they're looking at us playing Battlefield 3 and looking at us playing PlanetSide 2, and they understand, and they write about that. As soon as the new console generation comes out, they will stop writing that story. They'll go back to playing the 720 and the PlayStation 4 or whatever, and start wondering, I wonder what's going on over in PC land. Maybe it's dying.
It's interesting though because, maybe it's a boring journalistic answer to the question, but the fact that we have a Steam Workshop and mods have never been I guess mods have always been a huge part of Elder Scrolls, for example, but it's only going to get bigger as it's found a place that's really front and center of how games are delivered, which has never really been the case before. The thing that delivers your add-ons to you is right next to the button you use to play and buy the game. That generates stories constantly, and it constantly generates interesting things you can say about games, and it extends the life of those games ages after the fact, because we'll always be writing about interesting Skyrim mods because people will keep making interesting Skyrim mods. And it kind of means that the amount of newsworthy stuff happening on the PC will probably continue to get more and more and more, and can't really slow down because the old games are still interesting. You're not locked into what's new.
When did the 360 launch?
2006.
2006. Okay, so Steam at that point had been around for about 3 years, maybe 3.5 or something like that. Yeah, so it wasn't anywhere near what it is now. And I guess World of Warcraft had launched a couple of years before that. But the things that we think about and talk about are stuff like Dota and StarCraft and esports and the casting community and YouTubers and mods and Steam Workshop and the number of developments that have happened in the last 5 years in PC gaming that didn't exist when the last console generation came around is astounding.
But it's people buying and selling not just mods but buying and making money making Dota items and things like that. And
who knew that hats would become such a big deal?
Yeah, I mean, I guess and again maybe it's a boring journalistic answer to the question, but it means that PC can't really go. You can't if you're a console Mac guy or something, or you're just a general Mac gaming journalist, you don't have our focus. You still can't really ignore the PC because there's so many kind of constant news generators, whether it's esports or mods or sales or indie games that are usually primarily on PC because basically for the Xbox, whatever, to compete with that, it needs to have an amazing front and center indie games arcade that actually is visited this time. And
it's got to have support for free-to-play games.
And built-in free-to-play and built-in mod support and community-driven workshops. And it's the box under the TV that will do that is being made by someone else in Seattle. Yeah, interesting. So no. John, I guess.
I can't remember what the question was.
Do you think
anymore.
it will be curtailed by the consoles?
No.
No, we don't.
No, we at PC Gamer, whose careers and jobs and
Livelihoods are based on.
livelihoods based on.
And that is the end of Twitter questions, and more than likely the end of the podcast.
I think we can call it.
Yeah.
Time of death.
Time of death, lunchtime.
Yeah, 2 minutes past.
Suspiciously,
2 minutes
just
past
as
lunchtime.
Yeah, indeed. And yeah, thank you for listening. We'll be hopefully back in 2 weeks. Cheerio.
Bye.